Good morning, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Buckchester. You know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. Today I am speaking with author Karen Elias, and she is on fire about her book, Restoration. Now, I think that there is going to be some healing in store for some women tuning in today. We have a hot topic to talk about. So, you know what I'm going to tell you to do? Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Karen. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Hello, Dr. Angela. It is such a pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Now, I cannot wait to talk to you about your book. But before we do that, there may be one or two listeners out there who are unfamiliar with you or your work. Could you just introduce yourself to them? What makes Karen Karen?
Oh, okay. Well, Karen is, first of all, a Caribbean girl. I am based in the island of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. Karen is a dancer. Karen is a communicator. Karen loves family, loves friends, and Karen is all about her faith in God. She grew up in church and has not moved away from that. And Karen is just about loving people, loving women, making sure that women live their absolute best life, knowing that there is abundance and prosperity for you, no matter what you would have done. And all of us would have done a little something in our lives that we may not necessarily be too happy about. But God's promises never wane. And I am all about sharing that hope, sharing that transformation, and sharing that restoration.
Absolutely. I love that. I love it. Now, being an author, is that something that you always wanted to do? Like, did you know that you wanted to do that when you were perhaps a teenager? Or is it that you found it was the next thing along your life path?
That is interesting, because truth be told, I studied science in school. I actually have my degree in biology, and I studied biochemistry and biotechnology and all of these sorts of things. But writing for me was always very interesting and actually very therapeutic. And after I did my degree, I was sitting at home, and writing helped. Journaling helped. Writing in my diary helped. And then one day, one of my friends, he launched an online magazine and was asking for writers. And, sometimes something just tells you to take that step forward. And something told me, you know what, apply. Yeah, apply. And I did. And he was blown away by what I sent him. And it took off from there. And I started writing blogs. I started writing articles. And then I went on to write my book.
Now, the title of your book, Restoration, I love that. No matter what sense you're using the word, that always to me means a new birth, a rebirth, a appreciation for the old, but also an appreciation for what's about to come, for the new that's about to be discovered. Can you give us the inspiration behind choosing that title?
That is how I felt after what I had gone through. I felt that word truly encapsulated me, who I was, that I was restored. I was restored back to God. I was restored back to the full knowledge of His love and of His grace and of His mercy. I was restored back to purpose. I thought that I had lost my purpose. I thought that I had thrown it away because of my mistakes. But I was now restored back to that knowledge that, yes, there is still purpose for me. I was restored back to that hope of a great life, of a happy life of meeting someone and having babies and a family of my own, which I thought was not possible for me anymore. So restoration totally encapsulated how I felt and my whole mindset in moving on from what I had gone through.
I love that answer that you had that restoration. And isn't it wonderful to be able to continue to walk through whatever we have going on in life and be able to step out into that abundance? And that's not always finances, but just the abundance of emotion of feeling like, yes, I have made it through. I love that. Now, for someone who's a little unfamiliar with the book and perhaps they haven't picked up a copy yet, what drove you to write the book? What was your inspiration to share the story?
Well, the book is about my story of abortion, having an abortion while in the church, while being a dance minister, while serving on different boards and communities and stuff like that, and still living that life and having an abortion. And it was so traumatic for me. It was so heartbreaking for me. It was so fearful for me. It was so shameful for me. But I always remember during the process that I could not be the only person feeling like this. I could not be the only person who would have done this. In fact, I knew that because I would have had friends in the church at that point in time who would have done the same thing and more than once. So I kept telling myself, if I have gone through this, and I know other women who have gone through this, then there must be other people who would have contemplated, who may be contemplating abortion, even though they are in the church. And I wanted them to know my story. I wanted them to know that, first of all, they are not alone. And I wanted them to know, secondly, of the true ramifications of what they are contemplating or what they are about to do. And if at any point in time I can stop them from doing it by sharing my story, well then, bless the Lord for that. And even if I could not stop them, at least they knew that there was someone who would understand what they have gone through and would be able to just hold their hand as they pull themselves away and out of the emotional trauma and repercussions that would come from the decision.
Why do you feel that this is such an important message to get out there? With people talking about support members and support teams and various groups that we can even find on Facebook, why is this such an important message to get out there to women?
Because the truth is that, especially for the Christian community, not many women are very forthcoming with this message or with this news, this information. Unfortunately, within the church itself, there's a lot of guilt and shaming that can happen or is possible. And then outside of the church is such a politically sensitive issue. So not many women will be forthcoming. So I think it's very important to have this message out there so at least women know that there's a place that they can go to. A lot of women like to keep this private because they're still dealing with the emotions behind the occurrence and the activity and the time and all of these things. They could be very well grappling with so much behind closed doors. So it's important to get this message out, to let them know that there are people that can help. There are women who have done it. There are women who will where you are and that can assist you. So that's why I think it's really, really important that the message is out there.
Absolutely. Now, in this book, you talk about going through the process of healing and specifically dealing with the pain that you felt. Do you advise other women when they have gone through a similar procedure, be it that it was something by choice or the doctor informed them that the procedure was needs to be done? how do you address that in the book?
I think that it's really important for women to get help after having an abortion. And like you said, whether it was a choice or even if a doctor would have advised that this is the better way to go, at the end of the day, there is still a pain that is attached to it. There's a pain attached to it because women were created to give birth. Genetically, we have a womb, and that's one of the things that we were created to do. Just one of the amazing things that we were created to do. So when you go through that procedure, it's up in your subconscious mind or your subconscious feelings. You know that you went against your nature. So it hits you, whether or not it was by choice or as a life-altering decision. It still hits you that a life has gone. So that's why I believe that women should go through the procedure. Not all women have really, really terrible emotional effects. Some of them are okay, and that's fine. But some women really grapple with it. And even if you think that you're okay or you feel okay, it's always really good to still go through the procedure. Because what it does for you, the healing process allows you to grieve your child. And, if the child was born, the baby was born, and you saw the baby and stuff like that, you get a chance to get closure. You may have a memorial service, or you may, plant a tree or something like that to be in memory of your baby. But when there's an abortion procedure, or even when there's a miscarriage, you don't get the chance to grieve the life that was lost. So the process of healing allows you to grieve the life that was lost and allows you to get closure. What it also does for you, it allows you to get help on a very deep level. So you now recognize who you are meant to serve. It brings with it like a largeness and a freedom that comes with honesty, because you get to go through the entire process in your mind. Sometimes when you are faced with an abortion decision, it's a very quick decision, because sometimes it's a life and death decision or something that, you want to do very rapidly, So what the process of healing allows you to do is to just go through it step by step, deal with each part of it emotionally, come to an understanding, come to a reasoning in your mind. And that is really, really helpful in the process of becoming healed and becoming whole. Because at the end of the day, the procedure brings a sort of guilt and shame sometimes, even a denial within your own self about how you feel. But a healing process allows you to accept the fact that no matter what has happened to you and no matter what was done, the abundance of life is still your portion. Abundance of life is still your calling. Abundance of life is still very much ready for you, and you can still grasp that. So you're allowed to be light, you're allowed to be whole, you're allowed to be healed, and all of that comes with going through a process of healing.
Oh, I love that answer. Such a wonderful, wonderful answer. Oh my goodness, yes. Because you do need to have that permission to go through that process. And you're right. When it's a stillborn, or unfortunately if your baby passes away after just a few days, you still have had that bonding time. But when there's been an abortion, you don't have the same type of time. You are so right, and it does have an effect on women. Thank you for reminding us of that. Well, Karen, it is time for us to go to break, but before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Oh, so my book is called Restoration, Being Made Whole After the Reality of Abortion. It is available on Amazon, hard copy, soft copy, or Kindle copy. And you can get me via my social media, via Instagram at Karen L. Elias, or on Facebook at Karen E. Elias. You can also check out my website, KarenLElias.wordpress.com.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Sister. My guest today is Karen Elias, and we're talking about her book, Restoration. Oh, Karen, you are giving us such great information and reminding us ways that we can be there for our friends, our family members, the women that are in our lives, and they may not know where to go or what to do, and we can at least be there to support them during this time. Now, as with anything that happens to us and it causes us to grieve, we have the various stages of grief that we go through. But when we get closer to the healing, like we've gotten to the point of acceptance, and now we're starting to move on with our lives, can you tell me, how do you address life after healing? You know, you're on the other side of the hurt and the pain. How do you deal with that?
Life after healing is a continuous journey of personal development, a continuous journey of affirming yourself in your purpose, affirming yourself in your journey, in your destination, where you have to go. You know, I like to look at it in one of my favorite shows, Dr. Angela, is the 600-Pound Life. I absolutely love that show because I like to see how the persons involved go through their process after they have surgery. And after they have surgery is one of the most important parts of the entire thing. After they've done, they've been cleared for surgery, they've had their gastric bypass, and now it's time to exercise and keep up with their diet. And that is when you see their true character come out. That's when you see their grit and their determination. But I like to akin that to the journey after healing. There's still work that we have to do. There's still things that we have to put in place. There's still a routine and a structure in our lives. Because I know one of the many questions that I get from women is, I think about my baby. I wonder what my baby would have been like. I wonder where my baby is. I wonder if it's a boy. I wonder if it's a girl. And sometimes that wondering can bring back feelings of guilt and bring back feelings of depression or even just plain sadness. So afterwards, you really have to keep yourself up with your personal development. Do affirmations, do writing, do hobbies and habits and whatever it is that you need to keep yourself on that journey towards continuing to fulfill purpose and establish the life that you know you have been called to be. And what happens too is that sometimes, our lives can become so fragmented by things and by people and by experiences and all of these sorts of things. So life after healing is about remembering who you are, remembering that you have been forgiven, remembering that there's a call in your life, and doing whatever it is that you have to do to stay on that journey. Being coached and being mentored, and even like me, I continued writing, but doing things that keep you focused on who you are, on whose you are, and the great call that you have in this world.
Oh, yes. What a great answer. I love that. Now, for so many women, this is a sensitive topic, as we mentioned before, to talk about. However, it needs to be talked about. What do you suggest women do in order to be brave and to share their story or to tell their story? If they're not ready to tell it to, 100 people yet, or like write a book about it, but they feel that they need to tell maybe their best friend or a sister or their mom, how do you suggest that they go about doing that?
Well, I always suggest to women that this is your story and you dictate when it is shared. You dictate how it is shared. No one has permission to tell your story about you. So you have full and complete control about when it's done and how it's done, etc. And you choose your time. You do it when you are ready. And just because you don't do it does not mean that you're not healed. So you should not be pressured. You can be healed, you can be forgiven, set free, happy, go lucky, going about your merry life, and just choose not to talk about it. And that's fine. But when you do choose to talk about it, you do it in your own time. You get comfortable. You ensure that you are in a position where you feel comfortable, where your surroundings, you're comfortable with your surroundings, you're comfortable with the people, you're not feeling ill or anything like that. Drink a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee, relax yourself, and then tell your story in the way that you want people to know the story. And I agree with you when you said sometimes you just want to tell a friend. You just want to tell your mom, you just want to tell a sister, you just want to tell a coworker, and that's all well and good because you can very well change that one life with your story, and that one life can go on to change hundreds, even thousands of other lives just by you being vulnerable and being transparent and opening up. So you do it in your time, you do it in your way, you do it in your comfortable space, and you do it how you want to do it to make sure that the message that you want to be shared is very clear.
Oh, I love that. And you're so right. No one can tell your story but you. And don't give someone else permission to tell you how you feel, but instead you tell others how you're feeling. I love it. I love it. I love
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
So right. Oh my goodness. Someone really needed to hear that. And ladies, that is such a nugget of wisdom because there may be someone who needs to come to you, who's going to come to you very soon and tell you, something that happened to them, something quite, important and intimate such as this that you don't tell the whole world. And you need to listen to this is her story. Even if you may have a version of it, doesn't matter. This is her story, her way, and let her tell her story. Don't do that comparison or let me tell you. Listen to her story. I love that. Karen, that was a nugget right there. Thank you for that reminder. As a therapist, it's something that really hits for me because I think that as women, that is something that we tend to that some women tend to struggle with sometimes is that their voice, they feel that their voice isn't important or their voice isn't strong enough or loud enough, and they allow other people to come along and hijack their story and put a different person's spin on their story. And I love that you're saying, tell your story. That is beautiful. So speaking of telling the story, how was it for you when you decided to tell your story for the first time?
Oh, I waited until the book was about to come out. So that was like years after my abortion that I told my story. And funny enough, I didn't expect it. Listen, the way it happened is definitely not the way I saw it in my mind. But I truly believe that it was divine. It was something divine that happened. It was on a Sunday morning in church. Oh my goodness. And my pastor had just preached such a life-changing word about sin. And he was talking specifically to young people about the ramifications of sin and really how important it is to stay close to God and to be in this world but not of this world. And right before he had spoken on that message, like about a few weeks before, something like that, I told him about the book. I told him the book is coming out, it's almost finished, it's going to be published, I'm going to bring you a copy when it's published. So he knew of my story. Well, he knew of my story for years before, but he knew that the book was coming out. And after he preached the message, he asked the young people to just rededicate their lives to the Lord and come up to the altar and do that. And then he calls me to tell my story, and the sweat was just dripping. and my hands got clammy and I'm shaking. And I look at him, he gave me the mic, and I look at him and I said, how much of this do you want me to tell? And he said, how much you can. And I looked at, now my church has never, they always saw me as, Karen, minister of dance, and I was the deacon. I was a deacon at the point in time. I was deacon of communications, and I'm leading the dance group, and all of these things are happening, and no one knew that part of my life. But Dr. Angela, I really felt that that was the time to release this story. So I looked these young people in their eyes and I told them about my life, and I told them what I did, and I told them about how I felt after, and I warned them not to tamper with sin, not to play with it, to really dedicate their lives to living for God and walking and in His way and following His commandments, and really just pleaded with them to do right by themselves, do right by God, so that they don't end up in positions that they're going to have to literally crawl out after. And I felt such a lightness after. My husband wasn't there that Sunday morning, and I came home and I was like, babe, you would not believe what happened. And I told him, and he's looking at me with the greatest shock in his eyes, because he was like, you did that? And I was like, yes. and I got a hug and a kiss and stuff like that, but it was great. He was really proud of me. But I really believe that is how it was supposed to be, at least for me. Now, not necessarily everybody else's path, but I do believe that was the time. God knew what He was doing. Maybe somebody right then and there needed to hear that. They probably were going to make some sort of life-altering decision. I don't know. I wouldn't know what God had in plan. But I felt at peace, and I felt, I was good. I was good. And that was how I shared my story for the first time.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I can just imagine being in that moment, and it's like, what? You want me to share right now? Okay. So yeah, I could definitely see how you could have been a little nervous, but I'm so glad that you did follow through and you did actually share, because it really and truly probably changed someone's life. It gave them the courage to speak up and speak out. So I love that. Well, Karen, it is time for us to go to break, but before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
So my book is called Restoration, Being Made Whole After the Reality of Abortion. It is available on Amazon, hard copy, soft copy, or Kindle copy. And you can get me via my social media, via Instagram at Karen L. Elias, or on Facebook at Karen E. Elias. You can also check out my website, karenelias.wordpress.com.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. My guest today is Karen Elias, and we're talking about her book, Restoration. Now, with you being someone who is involved in church, and many times we understand that church is a place that we go to do, praise and worship, and to hear a sermon, to do Bible study, and all of that. But some churches are a little bit more involved in our day-to-day lives, meaning they give us action steps that we can take to help us apply our faith to our day-to-day living. Some churches do a great job at it. Others perhaps don't do as good as they could. Do you have any suggestions for someone who perhaps is in ministry in one form or another? How can the church address this topic in a way that is warm and inviting, a way that is helpful and healing, as opposed to a way that's a chastisement or full of shame and guilt to the woman?
Right. I've always believed that the church should tell the truth in love. We should never sugarcoat something that is against our belief, against the gospel, against the word. Everything should line up with the word, of course. But the word is also one of love because God is love. So anytime we're not doing this, showing the fullest of compassion and love for the woman or the family involved, then we're probably not going about it in the most godly way. I believe that churches can definitely get involved by having persons who are specifically trained and certified to counsel a post-abortive woman. I myself have gone through an abortion recovery peer counseling training and certification, so I know that that is definitely available to persons. My trainer, actually an American, she came to Trinidad and she did a training for us here. So there are several groups, several organizations that offer this training, and churches should definitely send the persons or have persons specifically designated to help a post-abortive woman. And like I said, you tell the truth in love. You don't come from a place of, hell is your portion or you're a murderer and all of these sorts of things that we sometimes see. Even some of the images, when we're dealing with abortion, some of these images are really so condemning. And I understand that persons or organizations rather want to drive the truth home about what the process is. But sometimes a post-abortive woman, especially one who's still grieving, who's still feeling guilt, who's still feeling depressed, when she sees this, it causes her to run away from her healing as opposed to running towards the healing that the church through Jesus Christ is supposed to offer a woman. So even some of the images that we use, we tend to use some graphic images. We tend to use some very condemning images. We need to change some of those images as well and cause these images to be one of open doors, allowing women to know you can come, you can talk with us, establish trust, establish confidentiality, establish a safe place. Because that's what a post-abortive woman really wants to have. Her abortion venue was not a safe place because that's where a life was taken. So it causes her to be even more vulnerable. So when she talks about it, she wants to feel safe. She wants to feel comforted. And she wants to know that when she comes to you, when she comes to the church in general, that she can trust, that she is loved, that they understand, that she knows that she made a mistake. She doesn't need you to reiterate that she made a mistake. Oh, she knows that because that's how she feels. So she wants to be brought back to that place of wholeness through love and compassion as opposed to condemnation. So we really need to establish that love factor, that forgiveness factor, and that acceptance factor, not of the sin, but of the woman and of the humanity of her, so that she can be fully restored.
Oh, such a beautiful answer. You are so right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, with everyone experiencing, and when I say everyone, I mean across this great globe of ours, people are experiencing a version of COVID-19, be it that they live in a hot spot or their area is starting to recover slowly. We have a lot of things that we're dealing with, from people dealing with unemployment to working from home, from domestic abuse to financial difficulties and issues. Have you found that in any research you may have done that the rate of abortion has either increased or decreased during these past? It's been like a year now. Has the number gone up or gone down in any way?
The numbers have actually gone up. I did some research through some U.S. sites as well as England, and they have, England in particular, have recorded the highest number of abortions for the first half of any year, which was this year, 2020. And they gave several different reasons. One of the reasons was that because clinics were closed, women were not able to access birth control. Another one of the reasons that they cited was that women felt that they could not handle bringing a child into this world during a pandemic. They were not sure if they would get the medical resources that they need, the medical assistance that they need, and they were very uncertain. So a woman would have chosen to terminate the pregnancy as opposed to going through with it because of the uncertainty of the pandemic. So rates have gone up, definitely in the U.S., definitely in England, according to my research. So it means, therefore, that there are more women than normal going through this sort of unease due to the decision that they have made. So I would advise women, because we don't know when this pandemic is going to go away. We really don't know, and we are forced now to pivot our lives and journey through it, even in the midst of uncertainty. So I would advise women now to first of all plan with respect to birth control, know where you can access birth control safety, places where you can go that you are not too exposed, maintaining social distancing, sanitizing, etc. But what's really important, Dr. Angela, is really creating a support system, a system of women, family, friends, whomever it may be, to assist you with this process, because it's not going to be easy. And abortion, I like to tell people that abortion is a permanent solution to a temporary situation. Because how you feel when you make the decision of abortion, you feel panic and you feel fear. So you do something rapidly and it's permanent. So what you want to do is develop a support system that can hold your hand through it, that can help you, women who check on you, even if it's daily, check on you, make sure you're doing okay, how are you emotionally, bring your favorite snacks, your favorite food, you have meetings with them, watch movies online, whatever the case is, so that you are emotionally able to handle a pregnancy as opposed to making the permanent decision of terminating a life.
I love it. I love it. Now, I have one last question for you, Karen, and thank you so much for talking on this subject, and that is the support that you were talking about. And I'm going to leave this really, really open to you. Do you have any words of encouragement either for the woman who is who's trying to decide what does she do now? What does she do next? She's post-abortive. What does she do next? Or for that friend of that woman who she's something's going on in her life. You want to ask her, and perhaps if that's what she's gone through, how does she share with her friend that she still loves her, that she doesn't judge her, and that she's going to be there for her?
You need to know your friends. You need to know who you can confide in and tell someone, because that's one of the starts to being healed and to feeling some sense of normalcy afterwards, is when you begin to share with someone, this is what I did, and this is how I feel, and can you help me? I advise women to get help, to have a friend, to have a mentor, to have a coach, have someone who can help you, because you tend to feel very unstable emotionally, you tend to feel unstable mentally. The effects are such that sometimes there's some things that you can't see, there's some sense, like smells that you can't handle, things that remind you, sounds that remind you, even certain medications, they remind you. And there are frequent upsurges of emotions, different types of negative emotions that you would feel. So I would definitely advise you to get help. If you are the friend of a post-abortive woman, help her. Check up on her. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How was your day? And if it is that you see that your friend needs professional help, then please advise her, even assist her in finding a counselor, a therapist, a psychiatrist that she can go to, a pastor. She doesn't want to go that route. She wants to go the more religious way, go to a pastor, etc., so that she can get help. But if it is that you do find that it is overwhelming, some women battle with suicidal thoughts. I mean, it's a wide range of emotions that the post-abortive woman feels. So get help, whether just be a friend or some sort of family support, or even if it means um, getting professional help. I heard one person say, prayer is a weapon, the therapy is a strategy. So you get help, be it professional or non-professional, just a peer counselor, but don't do this alone. Don't do this alone. And as you can tell, there are women who have gone through it. You're not alone. So find resources and find help.
Ah, what a beautiful message. You are not alone. Don't do this alone. There is someone out there who wants to hold your hand along the way. Ah, I love it because we women are definitely supportive of other women. At least here, the women that listen to my show, we are about that women empowerment. So I love it. I love it. Karen, Elias, thank you so much again for coming on and spending time with us here today and talking about a topic that we don't tend to talk very much about, but that we do need to definitely spend some time about. Before I let you go, if you could please remind everyone for the last time, what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Absolutely. The topic of the book is Restoration, Being Made Whole After the Reality of Abortion. It's available now on Amazon. You can get a Kindle copy, or you can order the soft copy or the hard copy. And please stay in touch. You can do so via Instagram, the handle at Karen L. Elias, or head over to my Facebook page, my author page, Karen Elias, and stay tuned to my website, karenlelias.wordpress.com.
I love it. Thank you again, Karen, for spending time with us here today.
Thank you so much, Chef, and Dr. Tessa. God bless you.
God bless you. And listeners, thank you for spending time with us here as well. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember, you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone.